Thanks for clicking on the video. If you like what you hear, please drop a comment and say hi. It'd help me out a lot.
The cell was colder than it needed to be. Rowan Vale stood just outside the threshold, arms crossed, visor clipped to her belt, tension resting behind her eyes like a storm waiting to break. The walls were smooth alloy, but something about the room felt damp, like memory clinging to metal. Inside sat the prisoner. He didn't look like the others they'd captured. No facial scars, no glyph tattoos, just a pale-skinned male in dark grey clothing, Coalition standard issue. His hair was short, his build lean, almost civilian, but he sat like a soldier, upright, relaxed, and he smiled. "Commander Vale," he said before she even stepped inside. "It's louder in your head than I expected." Rowan stepped through the doorway. "Name?" He tilted his head. "You wouldn't remember it." "Try me." The man tapped the side of his head. "They took it. Gave me this one. Doesn't fit quite right, but I remember yours. Rowan Vale. Warrior, protector, reluctant believer." She didn't blink. "Your coalition?" "I was," he said, "before the signal." Rowan approached the table. "You mean the suppressor tech?" He laughed. It was quiet, but it echoed too long in the room. No, that's just what they built to keep it out. I'm talking about the original, the first signal, the one humanity triggered," she frowned. "The Coalition started this war. Humanity joined late." He leaned forward, eyes bright. "That's the story they let you keep. But it started when your kind listened to the wrong frequency. Earth heard something buried in the deep dark, and instead of turning away," he placed his palm flat on the table, "you broadcast it back." Rowan's voice was even. "You're delusional." He shrugged. "So are dreams. Doesn't mean they're wrong." She moved toward the door. He raised his voice, not louder but clearer. "I'm the only prisoner who talks. Ever wonder why?" Rowan stopped. "Others go quiet, fade, dissolve. I don't, because I remember." He smiled again, softer this time. "That's what it feeds on, the remembering." A faint hum began to vibrate in the walls. The lights flickered, only for a second. Rowan turned back to face him. His eyes were glassy now, not unfocused, fixed, as if staring at something behind her. "You'll find it eventually," he said, "the place where the first echo rang out. But when you do," his voice dropped to a whisper, "don't listen too long." She first heard it in her quarters, a faint hiss of static, too soft to be a warning, too rhythmic to be random. It pulsed between the deck plating like heat in winter metal. Draven sat at her desk, one hand resting on a half-finished fleet readiness report, the other curled into a quiet fist. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Her eyes tracked across the holographic text hovering in front of her. Fuel ratios, hull diagnostics, medical clearance delays. The numbers didn't line up, not because they were wrong, but because she couldn't make herself care. The hiss grew louder, or maybe closer. Draven stood, rubbing the side of her temple. The sound followed. She activated her console, routing the ship's diagnostic sweep. "Bridge, I'm getting bleed over in Deck 7. Do you have a leak in the comm lines?" The voice that answered wasn't Alvarez, wasn't anyone on her crew. "It's not a leak, Draven. It's a reminder." She froze. The voice was hers. The console blinked and went dark. Later, in medbay, she sat under low scan arrays while the ship's medical AI ran neurological assessments. Her jaw was locked tight as the system scanned for any waveform residue from prior engagements. No residual waveform detected. No infection. No auditory hallucination logs on file. "Then what was it?" she muttered. The AI replied, calm and emotionless. "Query incomplete. Do you wish to submit a subjective dream index?" She stood and waved the interface off. Outside the medbay, the corridors felt longer than usual. The lights buzzed faintly, pulsing with a rhythm she almost recognized. She turned a corner and found herself outside the brig. The prisoner was humming. No melody, just a tone. Low, familiar. Her pulse spiked. She took a step toward the door, then stopped. On the wall panel beside her, a diagnostic light flickered, non-functional. Not powered. Still flickering. She stared at it for a moment too long before finally walking away. But the sound followed her, soft and trailing, like breath in her ear. You heard it too. The lights in her diplomatic suite hummed with a cleanliness that should have calmed her. They didn't. Vera sat before a secured terminal, council certified, off-network, with a private authorization layer keyed to her retinal imprint. It was the kind of system that promised you truth, the kind that had no reason to lie. She keyed in the request manually. Search, first appearance of humanity before the Galactic Council. Query range, founding era, pre-Federation unification records. The terminal blinked. Then, file not found. Rephrase. Search, humanity, initial delegation presentation. Access, Vera Kale, Ambassador Tier 1. The screen responded again, no such file, no record of origin speech. Vera's brow furrowed. That wasn't just unlikely, it was impossible. She manually drilled down through deep archive branches, bypassing diplomatic summaries and surface indexes. The core records weren't missing, they were redacted, time-locked under executive clearance levels she didn't recognize. Her authority should have overridden them. And yet, every time she tried a different path, she was rerouted to a single archived still frame. A paused hologram of humanity's delegation entering the old council rotunda. 5 figures, 3 human, 2 aides, and someone else. Blurred, deliberately obscured, not corrupted but veiled, like the light had been programmed to forget that shape. She played the clip again, slowed it. In the 5th frame, the figure turned just slightly. The blur flickered for only a second, and Vera saw something beneath it. A face, not quite human, not quite anything. And then the terminal blinked off. System reset. Unauthorized command lockout. A moment later, her personal datapad chimed with an inbound message. Private memo from Internal Council Oversight to Ambassador Kale. Vera re misuse of archive access protocols. You are advised to cease further inquiry. This is your final notice. Vera stared at the message. She didn't delete it. She didn't forward it. She just whispered to the empty room, "Then what are you so afraid I'll find?" And from her terminal speaker, without prompt or power, a whisper returned. "You already did." The guards didn't stop her this time. They just looked at her with the same hollow unease she'd seen in their eyes the last 2 days. The prisoner wasn't violent, wasn't disruptive, but somehow, the longer he stayed aboard, the heavier the brig felt. Rowan walked the length of the corridor with measured steps. Outside the cell, she paused. He was drawing again. Sitting cross-legged on the floor back to the wall, he moved his fingers across a slate with slow, obsessive care. Dozens of crude sketches lined the floor around him, each one messier than the last. Symbols, star maps, spiral patterns. Some she recognized, others made her skin crawl. One showed a woman in armor, with red spirals where her eyes should be. "I was wondering when you'd come back," he said without looking up. Rowan stepped inside, helmet tucked under one arm. "You said you used to be someone else." He smiled. "Did I? You also said we triggered the signal. That Earth heard it first." He looked up slowly, gaze distant but razor sharp. "Earth didn't just hear it, Earth sang to it." Rowan sat on the edge of the room's bench. "Explain." He gestured to the drawings. "You know why the other prisoners go silent? Why they fade? It's not programming. It's mercy. Silence isn't suppression, it's protection." He leaned in now, voice lower, because remembering the signal hurts. He handed her a folded piece of slate, older, marked in faded lines. It showed a spire in space, surrounded by concentric rings, each layered with symbols. In the center, a pulsing eye. Around it, phrases in dead Terran dialects. One stood out. "To listen is to invite." Rowan stared at it. "What is this place?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "They call it an echo well." She didn't like the way he said it. "You've seen one?" "I was born in one," he replied, "before I was made into this." Rowan stood. "What happens if we find it?" He looked at her like a man already halfway asleep. "You won't need to." He tilted his head again, listening to something she couldn't hear. "It's already looking for you." The Resolute was asleep. At least, it should have been. Most of the crew were in rotation downtime. Lights were low, engines idled on minimal output. The only sounds were the soft pulses of ship diagnostics cycling like artificial breath. Draven stood alone on the bridge, arms folded, staring out the observation window. The stars stretched in all directions, bright, indifferent. She had not intended to be here. She couldn't remember why she came. The console behind her flickered. No alert, no incoming comm, no reason. Just flickered. She turned slowly. The navigation screen had powered on, unprompted. A soft blue pulse glowed at its center. Coordinates, unmarked, unregistered, drifting near a dead star in an abandoned system. She tapped the controls. No logs, no source. Then the speaker crackled. Her voice spoke. Draven lock. Command priority recognized. Adjusting trajectory to origin. Repeating, adjusting trajectory to origin. Her hands tensed. She never said that. She leaned over the console. AI, confirm override code. Who authorized this? Silence. Then a whisper, barely above a breath, almost beneath hearing. You did. She closed the system and locked it. Walked away. Forced herself to. An hour later, she sat in her quarters staring at the system's schematic on her private slate. The same coordinates. Still there. Still blinking. Her heartbeat had returned to normal. But she noticed something now. At the edge of the star chart, etched faintly into the static band of the dead sector, a glyph. A single, red-lined eye. Not a symbol added by man, but one that had always been there. Buried under the map like a scar beneath skin. Draven looked away from the slate. She didn't send the coordinates to anyone. She didn't log them. But the next morning, the Resolute's course had shifted 2 degrees. And no one remembered changing it. The relay station had no designation. It drifted between gravitational shadows in a long-forgotten sector where even star charts refused to draw borders. Built before the Coalition, before the Alliance, maybe even before memory. The Resolute docked silently. Draven, Rowan and Vera disembarked in full gear. No escorts, no signals, just the 3 of them, bound not by protocol but by the kind of trust that comes only from seeing too much and surviving anyway. The interior of the station was dry and sterile, untouched by time or air. No flickering lights, no hum of life, only silence, until they passed the 3rd corridor. Then the sound began. A pulse, not mechanical, not entirely audible. A presence you could feel in your spine. At the core of the station, they found it. A sealed chamber, circular walls lined with etched spirals and glyphs matching those in the prisoner's drawings. At the center, suspended in pale gravity, floated a smooth black device the size of a human heart. It pulsed slowly, like it was breathing. No power source, no tether. And yet it glowed faintly with red light, an eye half closed. Rowan approached first. Her HUD glitched. Words scrolled across her display, but only she could see them. Rowan Vale, Protector, Observer, Carrier. She stepped back. Draven touched the outer ring of the device. It pulsed again, this time with sound. A voice emerged. Her own, but younger. We always listened too closely. She staggered away, hand trembling. Vera stepped forward last, and the device changed. It brightened, spun slightly in place. Then it spoke in her voice. A perfect, unbroken imitation. Vera Kale, you were there. You remember. She didn't move. The chamber darkened. The device pulsed faster now. Not hostile, just waiting. Each of them heard something different. Words that didn't match, meanings that didn't align. The only shared experience was this. They felt like the station knew them, had always known them. And beneath all the strange data, the echo, the whispers, there was one shared phrase that resonated through the pulse. Not spoken aloud, but felt, etched into bone. You opened the door, now keep it closed. Back aboard the Resolute, the silence felt different. Not heavy, not threatening, just vacant. Like something had left the room before they ever returned. Rowan sat in the ship's small tactical archive, flipping through her field footage frame by frame. The mission had ended hours ago. They'd already debriefed, already showered, already moved on. Except the footage didn't match her memory. The relay station? Gone. Instead, the file showed a derelict hull. No device, no chamber, no glyphs. In the frames where she knew she'd stood beside Draven and Vera, she was alone, talking, pausing, listening to no one. Her hands clenched. She switched to Draven's file. Same result. Vera stood in her personal quarters, staring at the sealed data crystal in her palm. It was blank. No pulse, no voice, and yet she could still feel it in her chest. The rhythm, the words. You were there. You remember. Were she? Did she? Draven sat at her private console, a half-empty glass beside her and the slate still open. It had taken her hours to crack the encryption she didn't remember setting. Inside was a single audio file, no sender, no timestamp, just her voice. Do not trust your memory. You found it. It knows now. She didn't remember recording it. She didn't remember hearing it before. But she believed it. For a long time, she didn't move. Then she deleted the file and whispered to herself, too late. Somewhere far beyond, deeper than any relay path or charted route, a signal blinked for the first time in centuries. No coordinates, no pulse, Just a shape forming in silence, an eye opening without urgency, without rage. It wasn't coming, it had been here. And now that someone remembered it, it could remember them too.